colleagues here, Shay and Moji at Microsoft, SMC East, and very excited to show you the art of possible, in Power BI, and in terms of what you can do, and take you through the journey end to end, how you connect your data, how you bring it in, visualize it, publish it, and then and then any questions that you may have at the end. So with that being said, if there are no additional questions or housekeeping items, I can get started. Are we good, guys, or anything else? All right, perfect. So I'm going to start with a very high level deck in terms of what we're going to talk about today. And we start the presentation. All right, so we're going to talk about, how to essentially, again, it's just diving right into Power BI and creating reports, going through the core pillars, like in terms of connecting, transforming, visualizing, and then publishing your data. And at the end of the class, the goal is that you be able to harness the true potential of your information, because I'm sure there's tons of information that you're dealing with, whether you have your ERP data, your CRM data, or anything else that your data team is working on. And so, for us being able to get insights into that data, that's kind of the whole goal here. So the first slide or the first step is pretty much connecting to your various data sources, and this could be anything ad hoc like an Excel spreadsheet, which is what I'm going to be using today. But we can also connect to anything else that you have, whether your on-premise databases, cloud databases, whatever it is that you want to connect to. So that's going to be the first step, right? The next step would be, how do we transform the data? Because a lot of times you may have data sitting maybe on your data lakes, or you bringing stuff from various sources, whether it's on Snowflake or hopefully Azure SQL. And then so maybe there's some transformation that needs to be applied before you actually visualize your data. So as part of this, we'll see how we can clean up the data. So that's the entire data cleansing process. Next, once we have the data in a good shape, then we can start visualizing the data, and then you can see various visuals that you can use as part of the Power BI experience. You can bring in, if you want, you can add additional visuals if you want to create your own. But today we're just going to stick to out of the box visuals. And then towards the end, once we created our report, we want to share it with our team. So that's the entire publishing process. So that way our team can essentially get access to the great report that we created. So that's the entire collaboration process. Um, so at the end, I'm also going to talk about a little bit about Power BI licensing. That's always the big question. So which kind of licensing do I need? So I just kind of table this off for the end, and then kind of go over the nuances. Awesome. If Are there any questions before we get started?
No questions right now.
Awesome. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and start sharing my screen. Okay. All right. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. You should be able to see the Power BI desktop screen. And this is kind of where the entire magic's happening. So pretty much this is where you can start creating the report. So Power BI Desktop is a free tool. Anyone, you can download it, and then you can start creating the report. So the first thing we were going to do is, because my data source is in Excel, I'm going to import the data from Excel. But before I do that, let me just show you a little bit around so you can see what all these buttons are, and just to get a little bit familiar with the whole canvas. So Power BI is a genesis. Essentially, the genesis of Power BI is all about Excel. It put together very powerful components of Power Query, Power View, and Power Pivot. And then that's essentially where it started. But now it's actually a lot more polished and it's more, it's pretty much the most used BI tool. And it's because of that familiarity. You know, if you're used to Excel or Power Query, you will see it's so easy to use. All right, so here in the top, we have the ribbons, various buttons we're going to use, your typical, you know, menus, right? On the right-hand side, we have the visuals that we're going to be using, kind of like Excel when you insert a chart. So these are the visuals we're going to be using, and we're going to put those visuals here on our canvas, right? And then on the left, we have three buttons. The first one is our report view. This is what we're looking at right now. This is where we're going to be spending most of our time. So this is kind of where we're going to visualize things, and because the data is always in a table format, but we want to make something cool out of it. Or, you know, depending on what your requirements are for the report. Another view here is the table view. We're going to see once we have the data here, you can see your data in a typical Excel or table format. This is kind of, you know, useful. Sometimes you want to look at the raw data, the data that you brought in. And of course, with Power BI, you can bring in data from anywhere, whether it's on-premise, in the cloud, and you can actually mix that and combine those data sources. You can mix your data. Let's say you want to bring some customer information from Salesforce and you bring some ERP and finance information from your Dynamics. You can mix and match it here. And that's essentially what the data modeling comes in. The data modeling is essentially the where we can actually build really cool models, you know, link tables to each other. So that way, if you have multiple data sources, it's going to be super exciting how what we can do with this. And for those that actually know a little bit about, I don't know, I'm dating myself here, maybe Microsoft Access, and if you see how you can connect tables to each other, that's just kind of where the experience comes from. Or also right now in SQL. So when you create database diagrams. All right, so I guess let's just go ahead and get started. I'm going to, and by the way, if there are any questions, you can post them to the chat, and then you know, we want to make sure that this is an interactive session, or we can address them at the end of the presentation. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to import a sample data set that I'm using is a retail data set, and it's an Excel file. But again, I can connect to anything else if I wanted to. So just as an example, so I can connect to various data sources, as I stated before. And a lot of times, if you want to work with a live database, you can do so by going, for example, to SQL Server, or you know, you have a lot of other connections, like for example, uh, you know, whether using SAP or other data warehouses in the cloud, and you know, HD Inside and Spark. So pretty much if it's out there, we can connect to it, right? So, or even if it's an API custom connection, you can actually start doing that here. But for the sake of you know, getting through this process and, you know, using a somewhat a simple data set, I'm just using an Excel extract. So this could be, for example, me, you know, as a business analyst, working with my sales team, and, you know, let's say the information is in Dynamics. I'm like, hey, Ross, can you take a look at our you know, a retail data set, and then show us some insights, right? So let's assume we're a large retail company, maybe like, you know, I don't know, like Walmart or Costco. And so my team provided me with an Excel extract, and I saved it here. It's called retail sales data. So this is just an Excel spreadsheet. And so let's see what Power BI can do with this. Let's take a look at the magic and then see what's going on. So Power BI kind of, once you connect to your data source, let me make this a little bit larger. It gives me a preview into my data. So the cool thing here is that whether I connect to a SQL database, to whether it's on-prem in the cloud or any other database or Dynamics, Salesforce, the experience is exactly the same. So I can kind of see the preview here before I load the data into my canvas, right? So I can see the column types that I'm bringing in. So, I have some product information, order date, order method type, the quantity, um, how much it was sold for, and etc., and the retailer type, etc., right? So again, I don't have a lot of columns here. This is probably like less than 10. So what I want to do is, before I load this in, I'm going to do maybe some transformation in the data. So this is kind of um, the piece that we talked about earlier. And a lot of times transformation is not necessary. So because we want to, if you connect to a data set, where it's already cleaned up, then you don't need to, but just to see how the experience looks like, because this is important, especially if you want to become a Power BI Pro user or getting into, data, like later on, wanting to do some data flows. You'll notice that it's this exact same experience underneath. It's the Power Query interface. Cool. So here we go. Again, here I have a chance to cleanse the data or clean up the data. Apparently, if your data is, again, if your data is clean, you're fine. But a lot of times we get data from various data sources. Some columns are blank. Sometimes you have a large data set and you're like, you know what? I don't need the entire data. Maybe I only need to, for my order date, I only need stuff for 2000, let's say 19 or 2020. So I have the opportunity here to clean up the data, to filter the data. And it's all GUI, so you don't have to write code. Matter of fact, the code is generated for you here at the top. All right, so let's take a look at it. So what I'm gonna do is maybe I'm gonna filter some information here. Let's say I don't really want to look at the order types coming through facts. So maybe that's something that I'm not interested in, or my business requirements, my end users who want to see the report, they told me, you know what, Ross, once you get a data set, take everything out, all the order types that are facts. Okay. And you notice it's just almost like an Excel filter function, right? So there you go. I filtered out everything that came through facts, the orders, and you will notice on the right-hand side, this step is getting recorded. So that's the cool thing about the Power Query, because you can kind of see all the transformation that you perform. A couple of these are automatically applied when the data is loaded, but I can also add additional transformation here, and each step will be recorded. And if you want to be specific, you can also rename this. So this step is auto-generated based on the action that you took. So I can call this maybe filtered orders or order method type, um, and um, and then in parentheses facts. So I know what is it that I've done. So for someone else who comes back here and opens up maybe this Power BI desktop file, they can kind of see, okay, what kind of transformation has been performed. Cool. And so also, if I want to, let's say, remove a certain column, I can, I like the right click. So if I want to remove this column, get rid of this, if I had duplicates here, if I wanted to split the column, sometimes you notice that this is sometimes when you have a column where the stuff is, the names or the information is concatenated, you can do splitting, etc., etc. So, all right. So for today's example, I think this is sufficient, and I'm going to go ahead and hit apply and close. Okay. So right now, Power BI is performing the transformation of the data, of the Excel data. And before I actually bring it into my canvas and start visualizing it. Again, so we're done with the first step, or maybe for the first two steps, I should say. We connected to the data, we applied some transformation. Cool. So you probably noticed that something appeared here on the right-hand side under the data pane here. You notice my table is now here, is available with all the columns that I had before, right? So you have your order method type, order date, product, quantity, sales, and etc. Cool. So we'll see later on. So we should not see anything in the order method type equals back. So we took out everything that was, because that's we were not interested in that. Now let's take a look at the experience of how do I visualize data now that I have cleaned it up. So I'm going to drag and drop sales, right? So and really, that's as easy as that's the cool thing about Power BI. So you can drag and drop, you can click, but you notice as soon as I drag the information here to my canvas and I drag the sales column, Power BI aggregated, pretty much the entire data set. And so it gave me a sum of sales, which is close to $3.7 billion. By default, it's using the column chart, which in my opinion works for most scenarios. People understand column charts, but I kind of would like to use a different visual. And you notice if I want to change the visual, I'm just simply hovering over to another visual that I'm interested in. So I kind of like to use a card visual. I mean, again, you don't have to, but I feel like when it comes to showing numbers, especially aggregates and sums and averages, it kind of looks nicer on the top. All right, so okay, so now I know my entire data set minus the fax orders, because again, remember we filtered out all the fax orders. We're close to $3.7 billion. Okay. I kind of like to apply a currency format here on my sales column, and kind of like Excel, I'm going up here. There is a little currency button so I can change the formatting. And I'm going to hit the currency button here. Okay, cool. So looks a little bit better. All right, there we go. And I can continue doing the same thing for quantity. You notice there's a little sigma button next to the quantity and next to the sales column. And that's because Power BI auto-detected the column type, which in this case was a numeric column. Cool. So let's do the same thing with quantity. So I'm grabbing and drag and dropping the quantity to my canvas. Again, Power BI auto suggests the column chart, which is fine, but I'm gonna use my card because I kind of think that looks a little bit better this way. Awesome. So, okay, with simple two clicks or drags, I'm able to see across my entire data set, like, what was the total sales and the total quantity. Now, if you remember this button here, the table view, I just wanted to draw your attention there because, again, you can see that the underlying data set, and again, just in a table view. And because, sometimes you want to be like taking a look at, okay, what's the underlying data set, all this stuff that I'm looking at, how many rows do I have? I just wanted to show you that here we have 86,000 rows in my data set. So Power BI quickly, and it's doing it super fast, by the way. So the aggregation, um, this is pretty much why you want to use why you're using reporting, because you want to see aggregates, and you want to see what's the total of this and that. So it does it so quickly for you. And so yeah, so we have 86,000 rows. And so let's continue having some fun with our data set. How about we're going to take maybe we take a look at sales, and you notice I'm just drag and dropping, and then sales by order method type. So, and then I'm just grabbing, drag and drop the order method to my canvas. Cool. All right, and I'm going to make this a little bit larger. And you will notice that, okay, so apparently most of my orders are coming through the web. Notice I didn't have to tell Power BI where to put the order method type, what access, or where the sales should go. It actually auto detected that information. I can change that if I want to, or I can change it maybe to a different visual as we saw before, or if you're more of a fan of a pie chart. Um, some it's kind of nice too, actually. I'm gonna maybe keep the pie chart. I like this. And so again, so with a couple of clicks, now I'm actually able to get some more intelligence about the data, those 86,000 rows in Excel. Um, that's kind of the power of Power BI, no pun intended, but so I'm just grabbing the data, dragging and dropping. Okay, let's continue this. So maybe now I know most of my orders are for this 3.7 billions are coming through the web. So maybe I want to do the same thing. And you notice I'm doing the same process, sales, and this time I want to look at the product type. Okay, so if you look at it, I don't know if it's hard to see, but I can see the eyewear product type amounts for most of my sales, which is almost 711 million. For the sake of consistency, I'm going to use again another pie chart for this. Okay. All right. So there you go. And sometimes it's just a matter of like looking and be like, yeah, maybe this is too busy. Maybe I'm going back to a column chart. But I guess for the exercise today, we just keep it as is. Okay, and I can continue doing that, right? So now I'm getting a little bit more familiar with my data set. I know that most of the stuff that my company sold was the orders came through the web. And I know most of the product type is eyewear. And then I can continue this, but this time I'm going to use a shortcut. I'm going to copy and paste. I do Control C, Control V, which is, which works across pretty much everything. Let me make this the same size. So I copied and pasted the sum of sales. And you notice, by the way, the title of the chart is automatically produced based on the column type that you choose. So here, instead of sales by product type, I'm going to use product line. I think this is something we haven't used yet. So I'm going to drag and drop product line instead of product type. Okay. And so now I'm looking at product line. So personal accessories amounts again for most of my sales. Cool. So, and let me make this a little bit smaller here so there's no overlap. Awesome. And another thing we can do again as part of this whole experience, something that I always do when I do my Power BI presentation, I like to show that, we should we can add a table down here. And in that table, we can show the exact trends, the underlying data set. So that way we can drill down and see if we want to see, for example, all the orders that came through telephone, which orders are they, and, to see a little bit more detail. So to do that, you just simply add a table. Again, this is not a must. This is just what I typically do. Um, so I have my high level stuff here on the top. I have my aggregates in the top right corner. And at the bottom, I have a table where my end users or report consumers can see a little bit more detail in terms of the information. Okay, so I'm going to click product, product line, sales, retailer type, retailer country, um, order method type, product type, and I think we still have some space for order date. Okay, cool. So, and with the table, again, I can have some, flexibility around making the columns a little bit wider. One thing I noticed that my sales has a lot of decimals after the comma, so I'm going to fix that right now. And so let me go back to my sales column. If you guys remember, I made that a currency format, but right now the number of decimals is set to auto. I'm gonna change that to 0 because I guess I don't want to see anything after. Uh, did it work? Ah, I guess I have to enter it. I have to hit the enter button. There you go. Okay, so now this looks a lot cleaner. I can do the same thing with quantity if I want to. Maybe make it a numeric format so it's a little bit easier to see. So you notice that. Okay, so now I have a little bit more of a functioning report, and we did it in probably less than 20 minutes. And so, what I always suggest is, giving your report a little title. Sounds rudimentary, but remember when we create reports for our end users, right? And we wanted to make it as easy as possible for the end users to understand what is the data or what is this specific report in this page talking about. I'm just going to call this sales overview, nothing fancy, but I think it's kind of a best practice to give, your report as kind of a meaningful title, right? So that way, maybe make this a little bit bolder. And all right, cool. So 36. All right, cool. And so all right. So are there any questions? Sorry, I didn't check the chat, but I just want to make sure that there are no. Okay, cool. Thank
No
you,
questions.
Shay, for posting all those great links. That's awesome. Okay, so and you notice now, for example, let's say if I'm interested in looking at, for example, the sales by product type, and I'm clicking on this slice here for eyewear, it automatically cross filters the information for me, right? So first of all, I can see what my sales is for this product type, which is around 700 million, 16 million quantity. But now also I can further see the details, right? So everything that I have here should be eyewear. And let's see, did I add product type here? Yes, I did. Let me bring it up. So I can change the location of my columns in the table. So right now I have product and I have product type. I just moved it out so I can see, so you can see it actually works, right? So I'll see all the products that were sold. There you go. Cool. Awesome. So now that we have actually a functioning report, it wouldn't be great to be able to filter, put some filters on the top so my end users can actually do some filtering. We call it slicers in Power BI. Again, it's just filters. So I'm going to move this around a little bit so I have some space here for my filters. Okay, cool.
Sorry,
So
Russ.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
yes.
Felicia had a question that she wanted to drop, but she's unable to put in the chat. Is it okay
Uh,
if I allow a mic
yeah,
to? Okay.
please. Yeah.
All right. Hold on. All right, Felicia, you can come off mute and ask your question.
Hi, I have a question regarding how would I show sales by date? Um,
Absolutely. Great question. And this was actually my next this was my next
uh,
segue because this is super important. And thank you so much for that
okay,
question.
okay,
Absolutely.
sorry, go ahead.
No, 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 it's all good. It's all, again, it's just an interactive demo. A great question, because a lot of times we wanted to the date components always super helpful and interesting to see for a lot of our people because they want to see, okay, how much did I sell for in this year, and that year? We'll get there. I just wanted to throw a quick filter here, and then we're gonna do that next. So, matter of fact, oh, we'll get there. So let's just do one thing. So let's say if I wanted to give my users the ability to use like a traditional filter, those drop downs that you can click on and be like, okay, let me filter down maybe by order method type, right? So Yeah, we kind of had something similar here. Maybe I change it to maybe retailer country, maybe a little bit more fun. Okay, so I just dragged the retailer country here, and then what I want to do is change my visual to this guy over here. It looks like a little funnel. We call it slicer. Well, it's just another word for filter. So, this is an easy way to filter information. So let's say I want to filter this entire 86,000 rows by everything that's in Australia. And so quickly you can see all the information is cross-filtered, right? So I can see, okay, for Australia, apparently 109,000, 109 million. And we'll get to the date function because now we want to see maybe, okay, so how much, what was the breakdown of this by year? So, and this is going to be our next step. I just wanted to show you like, okay, if you wanted to use a filter, you can throw it here and we call it a slicer. And I can continue doing that, by the way. Um, Let me just do another one for the sake of, let's see, do we have the product? Maybe I'll also put in the product. See, I just dragged product. I'm just going to convert it to a slicer. So now my sales team, if they want to see, okay, let's look at Australia and let's look at this product, or I can maybe filter it down by another product, right? So now I'm giving my end users this powerful tool to, sift through all the entire data set by simply doing 2 clicks. And you notice that, still a lot of stuff here. And yeah, so really cool stuff that, again, you're empowering your end users. You give them the ability to not only to visualize this, but also get down to the weeds. All right, so we're going to want to make sure that we want to also look at the various other aspects of maybe looking at the date, sale by date. Before I do that, I want to rename my page down here to match my title. So that way, when my users going through various tabs and pages, they know exactly what page they're on. So I'm going to call this sales overview. Um, can probably call it something better. I'm sure of that. This is just for the demo purposes. And I can go ahead and go to my new page and start looking and then producing, looking at sales by order date. But because I kind of want to keep this, maybe the title here, and some of these additional artifacts, just like Excel, I'm going to duplicate this page. Okay, and so see, this is my original, this is my duplicate, and so here I'm going to maybe remove a couple of things I'm not going to use for this purpose. Because again, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to look at sales by date. And let me also sales by date or sales over time, however you want to do it. And also want to make sure that my page title by date corresponds to my title. Cool. And so now, how hard do you think it would be to look at sales by date? I know it was a rhetorical question. It's simple. So I'm just going to grab sales, right? Because that's what I want to look at, right? I'm just going to make it a little bit larger. Sorry. Okay, okay, come on. All right, there's my sales, and I'm going to make this a little bit wider because I want to take it the entire canvas. And guess what? I'm just going to grab and drag the order date because that's one of the columns that I have, the order date. And voila, Power BI not only broke it down for me, so sales by date, but also it created hierarchy by year. So this is one of the cool things Power BI does out of the box. So if you have a date column, and let me show you how the date column looks like in the raw format. You notice the date column, I don't have it broken down by year, month, day, or quarter, but Power BI notice it automatically generates that hierarchy for me. Now, I don't have to take this if I don't want to. I show you how we can change this, but this is super helpful because now, again, two drags or two clicks, and now I can sort of see across those 80,000 rows, I have sales starting from 2013 all the way to 2020, and kind of see, okay, so there is some, pretty much up stayed the same, and in 2020 I have a drop. Okay, that's probably because this data set only goes to the beginning of 2020, but okay, cool. So again, the same experience. If I click on 2020, all the information is cross-filtered, so I know in 2020 I sold 81 million, and then whatever 1 million products. Okay, and again, I can still drill down by Australia, by product, or whatever else I want. Really that simple. Cool. But also, if you look at the order date column, Power BI creates a hierarchy for me automatically. So this is super helpful if I want to drill down. So let's say I want to look at 2019, right? And if I hover over it, I can kind of see a preview of what the sum of sales is for 2019. But I want to drill down a little bit. And so again, it further breaks it down for me by quarter. Again, this is automatically generated. So if I want to drill into 2014, I'm sorry, in Q4 in 2019, and I can keep doing that now, going by month. Yeah. All right. So I'm all the way down to the day level. Super cool. And so if I wanted to look at 17th of that year, so 2019, December 17th, this is how much I sold. And this is the exact transaction that, the number of items that were sold. And so, yeah, and I can drill up again if I want to. I can use these arrows to go up, up, and up all the way to the top. Okay.
We have
Hopefully,
one more question from
yes.
Felicia. Sorry, she's not able to chat, so she's sending it to
Oh,
me
yeah.
in the private chat. So she
Okay.
said, how would you do a year-to-date comparison? So let's say you want to compare sales from January 1st, 2022 compared to January 1st, 2023. How would you go about doing that?
Great question. Those are, so for that, I would have to create a measure. A measure is essentially a calculation where you can do year to date, year over year, and, what else we have? We have a couple of, I'll send some additional information for that in the chat, or we can do another session entirely for creating measures. Um, but yeah, because we have to go through so much other stuff, I'll send you that documentation at the end. Thank you so much for the question, though. Awesome. So one other aspect of looking at your data is like, okay, when I look at my visual here, maybe it would be nice to have maybe some data labels here. Data labels are essentially a way for you, kind of like Excel. I mean, yeah, I can hover over it. I can see my sum of sales, but maybe for my end users, it would be nice to see a data label. And I can do that, by the way, um, for any visual that I want to, right? So let's go ahead and do that. Oh, thank you so much, Shay. You're awesome. Shay put in the link for creating measures. Thank you so much. And so with any report, with any visual, you have the ability to format it, to change it, to add some additional context. So for that, since I have this selected, I'm going to take a look at the little paint brush here. So this allows me to, add some additional stuff. So did you notice down here, there's a data label button here. It's off right now. I'm just gonna simply turn it on. Simple, as that simple. And so you notice now I have data labels here. And it's kind of hard to, I mean, you notice that pretty much my sales is almost the same across all the years because this is auto-generated, data set. But let's go ahead and take a look and see maybe we can, instead of instead of maybe using billions, I'm going to use a different displayed unit format. Maybe I want to look at it instead of billions, you know, change it to millions. So there we go. Now we have a little bit better understanding, you know, so 2013, 533, 2014 is 534. Okay, not bad. And, you know, again, I can simply just go back and then maybe make this the title a bit bolder or change the colors of these. But I want to show you a different interesting aspect of this. Again, so if you remember how we generated this, I grabbed the sales column and I grabbed the order column and it generated this for me, pretty much broke down sales by order date. What if I wanted to see this maybe by order date or order method, I'm sorry, order method type? So I simply drag and drop order method type, and Power BI automatically finds the right location. It puts it into the legend, which essentially shows me now, okay, um, so it broke it down not only by year, but also by order method type. Excuse me. So I can see immediately kind of something I knew from before. You know, most of my orders came through the web, but I can also see the breakdown here. Maybe this, for some people would say, "Yeah, it's kind of hard to see, you know, order methods, you know, for anything that's not web related." We can change this visual maybe to use a stack column. Stack column, and you notice that sometimes when you play around with different visuals, some are better than other. And so, yeah, that might be a little bit easier to see. So I can again see a trend here, right? I can see most of my sales came through the web. Awesome. And I'm going to continue for the sake of time, and I'm going to create one more tab. I'm going to show you the magic of Power BI auto detection of geographical columns. I'm going to duplicate this page again. And I'm going to remove this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this sales by um, country. Okay. And this time I'm going to grab my retailer country because remember our premise was, you know, we are a large company. Or again, this data set could be anything, you know, um, but you know we have locations all across the globe. If you take a look at the raw table, you know, in our retailer country, we have various countries: Japan, Mexico, etc. So I just simply drag that column here, and Power BI auto detected the type of the information. It noticed, okay, so you have some country information. I'm going to suggest a map, which is great because now imagine you doing this for your entire team, a global team. Now you showing them, okay, so these are all the various sales points you have. So you have sales in the US and Mexico. It's very tiny, so I'm gonna make this maybe a little bit larger. But again, point being is, you know, as a citizen developer, as someone who's not very savvy with creating reports, I can just simply drag and drop columns and see what happens. You know, again, there's nothing that can go wrong. You know, you're not changing the original data set. Remember, your Power BI just generates a read-only report. So you can't mess anything up. So I'm going to also grab or drag sales over this. And so I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and you notice that actually the circles became a little bit larger depending on, let me zoom in here a little bit. And you notice that, okay, United States, I can click on it and you can see all my columns have been automatically, or all the other visuals have been cross-filtered. So I can see in United States, I have 640 million sales. If I do the same thing maybe for Brazil or any other country or um, China. And so again, this is an easy way for you to visualize data sets using geographical columns. So I can do something similar again if I wanted to do retailer country, and if I instead of sales, I want to look at quantity. similar concept. So it shows me like, okay, where did I sell most of the products, for example? Okay, so if there are no additional questions, I want to make sure you guys, how do I publish this report? Now that I've created this cool report for my entire global team, using the data set, I'm going to go ahead and publish this so I can, so my entire team can benefit from using this report. I'm going to simply save this report, and let's call this hmm, sales overview, or maybe call it global sales overview. I can also apply a sensitivity label. So if this report was something sensitive, you can apply the label, and based on that, you can actually, you know, pretty much have some data loss prevention policies that can be applied further to prevent data leakage and all that. So I'm going to simply save it as a non-business because this is just a demo. And so I'm going to publish this report. This is pretty much the last pillar of you know this entire journey of creating a report. Now we want to publish it. Now, upon publishing, what's going to happen is I'm going to publish this report to Power BI Cloud. The report stays within my tenant, my organizational tenant, so it doesn't go somewhere. It's still bound by your, the permissions and security restrictions that you have. And you have various workspaces where you can publish this to, right? So here, one of the workspaces that I have, it's called SMC. Let's see, SMC Fabric Trial. Okay, so this is a workspace that I have created before. And the way you secure reports is you can say, okay, in this workspace, only my sales folks can see the report. So this is how you do report security, for example, right? So, and I can put some more additional information in there, but it's simply just think of it like almost like a folder if you want to super simplify it. And that folder is only accessible to certain people. But a workspace does a lot more than that. So it has, you can put additional artifacts. Okay, so I published this report right now. So let me show you how it looks like. And so I'm bringing up that report through the browser. I published this report, and because it's now sitting in the cloud, I can share it with my teammates, right? And again, so it's the exact same reports. It's interactive, exactly just like the Power BI. And I forgot to rename this to sales by country. That's okay. And then I can come in here and share this report. And this is kind of where the whole magic happens. So if I wanted to share it with Shay, for example, and and okay, and there she is. And I can also share it with emoji. Okay, and I can put a note here. Maybe here is the report. You requested, simple like that. So I'm going to send this to them, and they going to get an email notification say, hey, this report has been shared with you. And see, that's really the simplicity of it. So I created it, I published it, and now I shared this report. If the report is, in this case, since we have the report pretty much in a workspace, I'm going to show you. So there's my report here. Once it is published, and let's say instead of an Excel extract, I had it connected to an actual database. I can come up here once I have it published, and I can set up refreshes because you'll be like, well, my data changes, and so every month or every week, I'll be getting a new extract, or I want to connect it directly to the database. And this is kind of where we can change and, do the settings. In this case, since I'm not using a database, I don't see the option of, actually, let me go here, sorry. Going to underlying data set. Okay, so I could set the refresh here once the report has been published, because then, that's the whole point of it, right? To keep it always refreshed, especially when my users come back here and taking a look at the report, it's always refreshed. Cool. All right, I know we have a little bit time left. I just want to show you a couple of other quick things you might find interesting. Um, you may have heard about Microsoft Copilot. So Copilot is essentially this whole generative AI, which allows you to reason over your data. And it's not available everywhere yet. It's right now, especially for Power BI, I believe it's in private preview or it might be in just preview. And so here I can come in and do some cool things. I can actually start asking questions, about my data. Like for example, show sales in 2019 for Japan. All right, let's see what it does. And again, it's in preview, so sometimes, okay, see. All right, so which visual I'm referring to. So maybe I do something else. Let me do this. Summarize visuals on this page. And I'm going to show you a different way of going using Copilot. Again, this is new for us too. We're just experimenting with it. So I'll let Copilot reason over my data and see what it comes up with. Okay, and so it actually found a couple of interesting things based on the data provided. The sales made for LAO relief in Japan for 2019 RSD. Oh, okay. I guess it went back and actually grabbed the information, made it, related to my first question. So telephone sales in February total this much. No sales were recorded in September instead. 235 units were distributed without sales revenue. Web sales in da da da. So assuming there were no other transactions. So again, it gives me some additional context. So this is kind of where you know this is kind of like the power of generative AI comes in. And so, with that being said, I'm going to see if you have any additional questions, or if there, I'm going to make sure because we have 7 minutes left. Going to see if there are any questions out there for me. If not, I can show you some other aspects of Power BI once the report has been published. Let me pause here, see if any questions.
Aaron just said, when drilling into the data, does it filter the other pages within the same report?
Question. So we could talk about cross filtering on the other pages. No, so right now, this visual only filters the context. It's within the context of this page because, if I want to look at, for example, this product, if I'm going to the other pages, it does not apply, but I can. There's a way to do it in Power BI Desktop. It's called syncing the slicers. So I can say, hey, when I click on this, I want to also have this filter the other pages as well. Great question. Now that I'm back to my Power BI desktop, though, I wanted to make a change. So let's say a user said, hey, Ross, that title down here is confusing. It says duplicate sales by date. Can you fix that? Okay, so I'm going to fix this. Sales by country. Okay, and I'm going to publish this again because I want to fix that error. Okay, it asks me what workspace do you want to publish this to? I say, okay, publish it back because it already exists. So it asks, hey, do you want to replace this data set? Yeah, I want to. Okay, and give it a few seconds. All right, success. The report has been published, so I can go back there. Actually, let me show you one more second. So let me refresh this report, and you notice this will change to say sales by country because that's what I changed right now. And there it is. So this is how you update a report, right? So you're going back to your Power BI desktop, which is on your laptop, right? And then you republish again. So that way your report will be refreshed and your users will get a report. This is just if you're working, if you want to make some modification or some formatting changes, right? There is another cool aspect of, in Power BI, kind of similar to Copilot, but this is automatically generated inside. So I can click on that, and again, so this is where me as a citizen developer not very familiar with all the aspects of my data, I can have Power BI generate some maybe some insights, and sometimes it's okay, and sometimes it's like, okay, this is nice to know. Um, and so, for example, it shows me sum of sales analysis. Overall sum of sales is currently at this much. Sum of sales for product Starlight and other segments are significantly higher. So I didn't notice that. So I'm like, oh, initially when we created the report, we didn't pay attention to that. So this is kind of the power of AI in the background, scrubbing your data set and kind of going through that and generating some additional insights for you. So this is actually, again, the AI, looking at your data and then sort of giving you some additional context about some outliers, correlations, or things that you might not see. Okay, so this is kind of like just pretty much the icing on the cake, essentially, where you can have like AI do some additional, detect some additional maybe insights, and then provide that to you in a visual format. Okay, so I know we have only 3 minutes left. I wanted to make sure there's no additional questions and maybe show you a little bit about the licensing side of things, because I think this is kind of important, but I'm going to still watch and see if there's any. Hold on, I probably. I don't need the speaker notes. Oh. All right, so maybe I'm just going to make this. I'm bad with PowerPoint. Okay. Zoom in a little bit so I can talk about the various licensing models we have. So in Power BI, we have different licensing models. If you were interested, like, okay, I want this. How do I do this? So Power BI comes in Power BI Pro, which is a per user license model, and Premium. The Premium capacity is essentially has a lot more power in terms of what you can do, and it licenses the entire organization for Power BI consumption. This is kind of what I put together for today. So which licensing models should I be choosing if I wanted to use Power BI? So if you have a smaller team, like less than 500 users or even 400 users, the per user license makes more sense, but it has some limitations. So your data size, model size can go up to 1 gig. You get 8 refreshes per day per report. But if you feel like, you know what, we want to use it for the entire company, that's where the premium capacity is, makes more sense. So when you get close to that 500 user threshold, then you might as well switch to the Power BI premium capacity, which again, license the entire organization for Power BI usage, but it gives you also much more powerful features. And for example, you can go up to 48 refreshes a day. You get 400 gigabyte data models limits, and it also is Microsoft Fabric ready. Microsoft Fabric is actually a new offering that Microsoft provides. It's amazing. It allows you to do so many cool things in terms of, we just saw the Power BI experience with Microsoft Fabric. You can do data engineering, data modeling, and also data warehousing. You can store your data in data lakes. So a whole nother conversation that I'll be happy to, if you guys are interested, I can definitely talk a little bit more about that. But I just want to point out, because obviously at the end of the day, we want to see, okay, how do I get Power BI? Which licensing model makes more sense to me? Hopefully this visual is at least able to give you a little bit of um, an overview in terms of what license would make more sense. All right, we're at the time. Hopefully this was helpful to give you the art of possible, to show the art of possible in Power BI. How do I create a report end to end, and how do I publish it, make it available to my team? My team Moji and Shay are here available, and Moji can definitely help you with if you have some licensing questions or if you want to do a trial, we can certainly do that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Like we mentioned, the recording will be made available to you via email. And if you have any questions or you want to have a one-on-one conversation, please feel free to reach out to Moji, and she would schedule that with you and your team. Thank you once again for joining. Do have a lovely rest of your day. I'm going to stop recording.